So good morning, Headmaster, Reverend, teachers, and fellow students. In case we haven't met before, I'm Mr. Pang. I'm one of the music teachers, and this is my third year teaching at DBS. Today, I would like to share with you some of the interesting journeys I've had throughout the years. Not really that one, but okay, a lot more beforehand. So, I was born in a Christian family. I grew up in a small apartment in Kowloon Bay, where I lived with my parents and my sister. My mother wanted a child, but was barren for many years. So when God finally answered her prayers, my mother named me Samuel, which means in Hebrew, the Lord hears. Since my parents were not rich, they never intended for me to apply for any of the top-notch schools in Hong Kong. They didn't know how or where to apply for any of the diocesan schools, and it was only under the encouragement and help of some of my family friends that they signed me up for Christ Church Kindergarten, also known as CCKG. Fortunately, CCKG was very strongly affiliated with the Diocesan Preparatory School, where I ended up studying, and it was a place that proved vital to my childhood development. My parents helped me apply to a good number of primary schools. They would constantly ask for the Lord's guidance to bring me to the right place. Thankfully, the Lord's instructions were very clear. I was rejected by all the primary schools I applied to, except for DPS. There, I officially became a Basoizai, and I received important training in many aspects that proved vital to my career path, including choir training under Mrs. Yip and public speaking skills under Miss Wendy Ng. And it seemed that God would always guide me in similar ways, that He would always shut off all the pathways for me, except one. Somehow, that has always been His way of guiding me. Besides singing and public speaking, I also developed a genuine interest in orchestral playing at DPS. My days making music in primary school were extremely rosy. I became one of the principal players in no time at all, and it was then I decided I wanted to be a musician. The attention and recognition I received was simply too fascinating. However, things skydived to new lows the moment I stepped into secondary school. DBS attracted some of the best string players of Hong Kong in my generation. And since I could not keep up with the competition, I immediately found myself amongst the reserves of the orchestra. I barely made it to some performances as the last person in the second violins, and the music scores were often too difficult for me to handle. The attention, the recognition, the glamour I once had in primary school, the glamour that once enticed me to pursuing music was no longer there. Even my academics started to drop. I constantly ranked 200-something in my report card, and I found it extremely difficult to focus in class. I was so lost that in one of my chemistry tests, I filled in all C's in one of the multiple choice answer sheets. And my only rationale for that was, since I had to make a guess, C was for chemistry, so that's my answer. I reached a point in life where I felt most lost and depressed. My teenage years were supposed to be the time when I would discover and develop my talents. Yet it seemed as if I was failing in everything. Even my hair products didn't quite work for me. To make matters worse, my friends seemed to be succeeding in everything they did. All my friends had won open class competitions at the Hong Kong Schools Music Festival, except me. For a very long time, I was not excelling in anything, and I could see no future in myself. All I could do was pray to God for help every night. Yet in the midst of all the depression, God did offer me comfort in rather interesting ways. One random day, right outside the tuck shop, some former classmate asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up. I told him, I will come back to DBS and teach music. The kid thought I was a lunatic, and so did I, actually, given that I was the worst violin player in the orchestra, and that my grades were not at all impressive. My answer made no sense at all, and it shocked me as much as it shocked my friends. I had no idea where the answer came from or why this idea would even be in my head. Strangely enough, 4 years later, when Dominic Sham and Aristo Sham's mother asked me the same question. I told her, just like the previous time, that I would be teaching at DBS. This was light years before the school ever talked to me on the possibility of returning as a teacher. And to this day, I still have no idea where these thoughts came from, or why I would answer my friend or even Dominic's mom with such certainty. But perhaps that was God's way of comforting me, to answer my own prayers with my own lips. So how did the Lord connect the dots for me? By the time I was 16, a good number of viola players left DBS and the Academy for Performing Arts. Both schools were suffering a great shortage of viola players, and so they were hunting for violinists who would be willing to make the switch. Since I was completely stuck with my development, I decided it would not hurt to attempt something new. So I spoke to the head of strings at the Academy. I told him I will be willing to play the viola for the Academy, but only if they lend me an instrument and assign me to the best viola teacher they had. Once I switched instruments, my whole life changed. Maybe it was because of my new teacher. Maybe it was because of a new instrument, or simply because it was God answering my prayers. But for what it's worth, I became the principal viola player at both DBS and APA in no time. By the time I reached Form 6, several music schools from the United States sent representatives to scout for music talents in Hong Kong. I had no idea what the names of the visiting schools were. My parents knew nothing about U.S. colleges, and neither did I. So I filled in their common app in hopes that one of the schools might be interested in my application. And once again, the Lord's instructions were very clear. Just as He had guided me to Dawson Preparatory School, He led me to the Eastman School of Music by allowing all other music schools to reject me. I had no idea what Eastman was, so I looked it up on Wikipedia and realized that it was actually ranked the hottest school of music that year by Kaplan and Newsweek's How to Get Into College guide. At Eastman, I studied with a wonderful teacher, Miss Carol Rodlin, who transformed me to becoming a different musician. I also studied chamber music and conducting intensively with various professors who taught me everything I needed to know for my future days as a music teacher and conductor. By 2012, there were 5 offers for me. Top schools like Juilliard, Eastman, Cleveland all gave me admissions offers to their graduate program, while the viola professor at Yale also invited me to study with him. But my heart was already set for my 5th offer, which was from the Dawson Boys School, the very place I grew up in. Through the various ups and downs, I learned how my own plans were always full of ignorance, and yet the Lord was always merciful in providing me a way out. Even though there were times when the path appeared to be dark as night, the Lord would always shed just enough light for me to take the next step. By the time all these offers were at the table, I had a deep sense of peace and conviction that DBS was to be my next stop, where I would find purpose and meaning in my work. Ever since the incident outside the tuck shop, it had been made clear to me that I should return home to DBS someday, so that when the school approached me, everything that happened in the past seemed to immediately make sense. It didn't matter if Juilliard or Yale were knocking on my door. I simply wanted to go back to DBS, because that was my calling. And looking back at this decision, I could not be happier about it. I could never be more thankful to the school for calling me back home. So here's my challenge for all of you. I do not know what stage you are in I do not know what stage you are at in your lives, what you may be struggling with, what you may be aspiring to be. But I ask that you'll find the calling that the Lord has for every single one of you. In Jeremiah 29:11-13, the word says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Then you will call on me and come and pray to me, and I will listen to you. You will seek me and find me, and when you seek me with all your heart." It didn't matter whether I was sitting in the first chair or last chair of the DBS orchestra. It didn't matter if I was the brightest kid in class or the bottom of the curve. Point is, I've experienced both ends. And if you respond to God's calling, He can use you no matter what. Whatever God is calling you to become, your task as a DBS boy is to find that calling, because only when you respond to that calling will you be truly satisfied in life. This is all I have to share today. Thank you for listening. Thank you.